In Detroit, former Representative Democrat John Conyers, one of the founders of the Congressional Black Caucus, died at his home earlier today. A police spokesman says Conyers natural causes. Conyers was 90. In Southern California, the tick fire is 65% contained, but in the north, the Kincaid fire's containment is rated at 10%. Sonoma County Sheriff Mark Essex says firefighters are working hard to fight the blaze, and there are many others trying to keep people safe.
We currently have over 262 peace officers in the field, and those are supplemented also by the National Guard. We are using our peace officers and the National Guard to maintain checkpoints for evacuation areas. And we're also having that strong police presence there to really assure people that if they have evacuated, their property, their homes will be safe.
More than 180,000 people have been ordered to evacuate. More blackouts are expected later this week. I'm Evan Haining.
Wherever you are, make it T. Truth Frequency Radio.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I am your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, we explore the mysteries of the universe and of the Earth. Whether you are driving across the country tonight or working on your favorite project, listening to this as an archive, we welcome you. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Let me give you my Religion of Peace report very quickly. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 28 attacks. They killed 109 innocent people. They injured 66 innocent people. They conducted 2 suicide blasts and spread their mayhem across 8 countries. All of this from the Religion of Peace. Now, I have a special guest tonight. At 8:30, I'm going to be spending some time with Lori Spagna. She is a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual teacher, ascension guide, multidimensional channel, intuitive, animal communicator, energy healer, light worker, visionary, and luminary, who assists others to awaken to their alignment with the true divine source, which exists within each and every being, so that all beings can live their best life ever. We're going to spend some time with her and not only pick her brain, but she's probably going to figure some things out about you as well. This is a live call-in show, and you can always call us at, 213-233-3998. The number's right there on your screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can just pick up the phone and call us. Just to give you some quick bullet points about Lori, this is what she covers in her workshops and what we're going to be discussing tonight. Ascension and awakening of humanity and planet Earth. The evolutionary shift of consciousness, our dormant potential and sacred energy. The role of our dormant DNA, our original divine blueprint, and sacred key code. We're also going to cover activations aligning with the divine source within and unity consciousness, and our interconnectedness, our galactic connection, and our star family faces. So that's going to be coming up at 8:30. So hang in there, especially you YouTubers. We don't break for 3 hours. So if you have your beverage, you have taken care of all your other bodily functions, we're good to go. We do take a break every 30 minutes for 3 minutes, and then we get right back to it. So let me give you the breaking news, some of the things we'll be covering tonight. Representative Katie Hill of California announced today, just a few hours ago, that she is resigning from Congress amid allegations of sexual relationships. Actually, I think there's a little more than allegations because I kind of saw the pictures. With a member of her congressional staff and a campaign staffer. She says, "This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I believe it is the best thing for my constituents, my community, and our country." That's what she said in a statement she posted to Twitter. Hashtag fun with staffers, hashtag 32. Hill admitted the relationship with the campaign staffer, writing to her constituents earlier this week, blah, blah, blah. This makes only 19 Democrats left to get out of the way to return Congress to the people. Also, as you just heard in the news, I think I have this correct, last night, Abubu Bakar Bag Bummer was chased down a tunnel by military canines. Live tape caught Abubu screaming like a sissy and begging for his life. After he blew himself up, we could hear, deep in the tunnel, the canine team saying, "Who's a good boy?" Hashtag give a dog a bone. Also in the news, the global syndicate is not having a good day today. No. Citizen protests all over the world took place today, including tens of thousands of Lebanese holding hands all the way across the country in the 11th day of protests against the global government. Oh, by the way, special ops guys captured tons of high-level intel at the Bag Bummer compound. This may include the money trail back to the Obama-Clinton State Department, the weapons from Libya stolen during Benghazi, and the drug income flowing back to corrupt politicians in America who are funding violent protests in 200 sanctuary cities across 28 states. I thought it was a little notable that just a few days before Bag Bummer was located and targeted, Nancy Pelosi and her team went over to Jordan just to kind of, make sure everything was okay. We don't really know exactly what was said, but it just seems strange that President Trump approved the trip. Over she goes. She thinks everything's cool, making sure, hey, we're going to get the payments on time. Everything's going good, right? And then a few days later, good old Abubu Bag Bummer takes the big dirt nap. Okay, and finally, California, once the most technologically advanced state in the world, has slipped sadly into 19th century darkness less than 2 years after the election of Gavin Newsom as governor. Although the state has seen more rainfall in the last 2 years than in the previous 10 years, the regulations against watering and trimming overgrowth of trees and shrubs are threatening to rip down all the power lines in the annual Santa Ana winds. These are not new winds, okay? I'm from California. I graduated in high school. By the way, hi, Terry. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Robin. Hi, Ginny. Who else is out there? Oh, yeah. Well, are you really watching? Okay. I have a friend in Kentucky who I did some work with on some houses when we moved out of the collapsed economy in Kentucky to Tennessee. And he evidently heard me on Coast to Coast this week on Coast to Coast AM with George Noory. And I was the secret guest, the first secret guest for that night. And he wrote me and said, I'm going to give you a secret email and I'll give you a hint who I am. Well, I know who it is, JC. So welcome to the program. Hopefully you're out there watching. I can flash over here to YouTube and just look at the chat. And thank you very much. Let's see, Diane is there. Piper Fogel. By the way, if you're not following Piper Fogel, you need to do that. Piper Fogel, at Piper Fogel. Just check it out. By the way, Vogle or El means bird in German, so Vogel may be the Americanization of that word. I'm just letting you know. So let's see who else is out there. Chuck and hey, we're really getting close to the super chat. Yep, you have to have 4 million hours of viewing on YouTube Live or YouTube videos before YouTube will allow you to monetize your feed. So here we are 12 years in on YouTube and we're getting very close to being monetized. It's kind of cool. And by the way, I've apologized for being gone for so long. 90 days about as far as I've been gone, but the reason that I left is because YouTube had us throttled down to two live listeners. And so we left. We just said, well, fine. If you're not going to let people see us, you're not going to send it out to all of our people that have subscribed to us, then we'll just leave. So we did. We went to Facebook Live, and we built that audience up for about 3 months. And all of a sudden, about 2 weeks out of the blue, knowing nothing that I did, I can assure you, I had about 200 subscribers coming in 5 days. And it's been pretty steady stream, which has been nothing for months and months, not even a single subscriber a day. So evidently whatever soldier was assigned to us has moved on, and now our feed is able to grow again. So I said, well, let's take care of the 200 people that came in. We'll go YouTube Live, and we did, and lo and behold, we had 700 views, and now we're going to stay with YouTube Live for a while until something changes. So keep it going, keep listening, keep sharing, keep subscribing, and we'll get to the 4 million hours or whatever the threshold is for YouTube, and we will be able to monetize, which is kind of cool because it takes several $1,000s a year to keep this radio program going, and I'm happy to do it. We are also live on tfrlive.com, so if you're not, totally into video, you don't want to see me anymore, that's fine. You can just listen. And you can go to tfrlive.com and click on the live feed between 8 and 11 p.m. And here we are. And if you missed any of the last 4 years on TFR, I think there's 254 programs now recorded. The easiest thing to do is to sign up for the archives. It's about the cost of what? Just a cup of coffee. That's it. Yep. For the price of a cup of coffee, you can have access not just to my archives, all the other 37 hosts' archives as well. Easy to do. tfrlive.com/X2Radio, and you can sign up for the archives. So let's dispense with the shameless plug now, and we'll carry on. I'm watching the call board, so you can call in 213-233-3998. And don't forget, at 8:30, we're going to bring Lori Spagna on the program. I want to give you a quick Civil War update. One of the things that you may be sensing is America is far from shore. And maybe the ship's listing a little bit, it's kind of over on its side. And the truth is that we've been taking on water for many decades. And the global syndicate has been pumping sewage into the holds of America since the 1950s. And I'm sure you've heard speeches from bell ringers warning us of the invasion, of the subversion of America, all of that stuff. One of them was named Robert Welsh. Now, he was a John Bircher. I don't know if you know who John Birch is, but those of you that are my generation remember who he was. He listed out 10 things the communists planned for the destruction of America. I just want to run over these really quickly. We'll top them off a little bit after we speak with Lori for a while and be uplifted for an hour or so. The first one is greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. Agreed? All in favor. You could just, yeah, okay, good. Number 2, higher and then much higher taxes. Number 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes and the higher revenues. Number 4, wildly inflate our currency. Number 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials supposedly to combat inflation. Number 6, greatly increase socialist controls over operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied naturally and automatically by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and the cost and reach of our domestic government. That's certainly true, but I'm going to cover this in more detail. Number 7, far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. Notice I'm wearing my Convention of States hat tonight. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines to mean no more within our nation than our county lines do now within the states. Number 8, the steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. And number 9, a constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessities of peace, peace always on communist terms, of course. Number 10, the constant willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government that amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world and the United States itself. Now, the question that I want to ask you all tonight, and I will attempt to answer, is, were these 10 items listed out by Robert Welsh in 1958 successful? And the unequivocal answer with respect to these 10 things is maybe. I don't mean to be ambiguous, but let's go through each one of them. I've got about, 10 minutes. I think I can get this done. Number 1 was expand government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. The answer is yes, greatly expanded, in fact. Federal spending this fiscal year will be in the range of $3.8 trillion. The GDP is around 17, almost $18 trillion. So federal spending is under 24% of GDP. Now, what was it in 1974 when inflation was kind of crazy? GDP was about 1.5 trillion. Federal spending was about 269 billion, and that was about 18% of GDP. So spending has risen as a percentage of the GDP, but the United States is still much more restrained than Western Europe. By the way, China is somewhere around 101%. That'll give you a little idea just why China is trying to take over Taiwan, take over Hong Kong, build all these islands in the South China Sea, because they need to expand their territory. They need to expand their asset base and their income base. They mean to at least tax those territories. I think they mean to confiscate all the equity in those banks so that they can fix their cash shortfalls. That's my personal opinion. And number 2, let's see, higher and then much higher taxes. The answer is yes. If we are speaking of gross taxes collected by the federal government, then maybe not, because actually, that percentage has come down from about 75% to 35% to finally somewhat less than that. And of course, the tax laws have allowed those that are very, very skillful to not pay any tax at all personally. I mean, their companies do. But the high point was 1944. That was the last full year of World War II. That was about 21%. It's fluctuated between 16% and 20% ever since. It was 18.3% in 1974. It was about 16% in 2012, and it's somewhere around there right now. In terms of personal income tax rates, Reagan reduced the top bracket from 70% down to 28%. And let's see, Clinton went up to almost 40%, but that's still nowhere near the 70%. And I think now it's down to 25%. So, by the way, in 1958, the top rate was 91%, but actually nobody really paid 91%. There were a lot of loopholes and things. And number 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes. No doubt about it. Yes. Number 4, wild inflation of our currency. I would say the term wild is a no. I mean, it's serious. It was serious for a while, especially during 1974 to 1984, and then it began to slow. And the reason it began to slow is because you have to understand what causes inflation. Productivity doesn't cause inflation. Growth, nope, doesn't cause inflation. Raising prices, nope, because it also reduces the revenue because fewer people buy, more room for competition to come in. It's naturally balancing. The only thing that causes inflation is printing money. And the Fed, during Bush and Obama years, the Fed pumped $85 billion each month into the bond markets to keep the dollar strong. And that is what caused inflation. That is why gold dropped to about $1,200 an ounce after that easing was gone. Anyway, it's been replaced with actual growth, which appears to have curbed inflation effectively to just about zero. Unless you're talking about dehydrated mushrooms or something like that, then I'm sure it's probably experienced 100% inflation. But everything else, generally speaking, your dollars go a lot further. We do have a caller. I have about 5 minutes left, so let's go ahead and take this call. I got a call in Huntington Beach, California. So let's go ahead and unmute this. And welcome to the program. What's on your mind? Huntington Beach, you are on the air, unless you just want to sit back and listen. Just nod your head if you want to sit back and listen and not talk.
Where are my other suits?
All right, that's fine. No problem. I get it. There is a listener line, if you want to call it. It is, if it's working, it is 641-793-7117, 641-793-7117, if you just want to listen and not sit on the caller board. Anyway, I used to live in Huntington Beach. I really like it. It has, I don't know, the best of all worlds as far as weather. Not far from the beach, not far from business, and if you can stand the traffic. Let's see, number 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials. It was attempted a few times. It doesn't work. It's very short-lived. Nixon's price and wage controls of 1971 were removed in 1973, and they really haven't been imposed industry-wide since then. Certain areas, yes. Certain businesses, yes. We're trying our hardest to lower pharmaceutical prices right now, but those aren't really price controls. Those are more allowing competition to come in and let the market forces drive the prices where they need to go. So I would say that, you know, this out of control spending that causes us to have to print all this extra money. That's why the Tea Party was born, okay? The Tea Party was born to curb this out of control federal spending. The federal spending has slowed relative to GDP. That is to say, the rate of growth has definitely slowed, but it's still $1 trillion more than we take in, which now everything's kind of caught up, okay? We've caught up the military. We are productive. More people are working now than have ever worked before. We have more tax revenue coming in than ever before. I think that we're about to the point where we can start catching up and not run the deficits that we have been running. Number 6 is greatly increased socialist controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied naturally and automatically by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and the cost and reach of our domestic government. Answer, most definitely, absolutely, positively, yes. So we're to 5 yeses and 1 maybe not so bad. Since the establishment of the Democrat National Committee in 1848, the federal government has seized control of more than 1 billion acres of American land. Highways, parks, monuments, preserves, and more than 50% of many western states, water, forests, farmlands, rivers, coastal areas, and even the airspace and the frequencies that travel through them above the entire nation belongs to federal agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations. And if you don't like it, most of them have armies which are willing to come and kill you to take it. If you don't ask me, ask Lavoy Finicum, who was assassinated under the orders of Governor Karen Brown of Oregon. They claim it is to preserve and protect these resources. Socialism is defined as the government's ownership of the means of production. Modern semantics defines these federal actions as fascism, but I can tell you that this is just word salad. Franklin Roosevelt was a fascist. His pen pal was Mussolini, one of the most accomplished fascists in history. So what does it actually mean? It means that global multi-billion-dollar corporations place their executives into controlling positions within the government. How do they do this? The president and Congress created more than 650 agencies. Those agencies are staffed by these corporations. The functions of the agency is to limit, regulate, or outright stop anyone from competing against them. They squash free enterprise. They limit the choices of any business by those controlled by or owned by the corporations who staff those agencies. They are career bureaucrats. They outlive presidents. They outlive congressmen. They outlive senators. So do you want to split words with me over whether this is communism, socialism, or fascism that has taken over our nation? No, you don't. The reality is that since 1933, America has taken on so much sewage that it is close to sinking. We'll be right back after this break. Don't go.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
We're just dialing Lori right now, trying to make sure that she's coming on. I think she's there. Lori, are you there? No. Okay, let's see here what we can do. Let's try her one more time. If that doesn't work, we'll try something else. No. Okay, let's try something else then. Let's see here. Let's see if this works. That's not right. Let's try. Let's try this. Now, let's see if that adds her to her a phone call. That should work. Hopefully she will answer, and we will be live in just a little bit. Is she there?
Can you see me?
Yeah, okay, hang on 1 second here. Let's see how I do that. I gotta add. Oh, there you are. Okay, add your video. And there you are. You're on screen. Very good. All right, I'm going to add the studio back here, and then we will be live in about 7 seconds.
Okay.
And Barnes and Noble.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Thank you for hanging in there during the commercial break. My guest tonight is Lori Spagnush. She is a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual teacher, ascension guide, multi-dimensional channel, intuitive animal communicator, energy healer, light worker, visionary, and luminary who assists others to awaken to their alignment with the true divine source which exists within each and every being, so that all beings can live their best life ever. Welcome to the program, Lori. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm a huge fan of yours, Brooks.
Well, this is kind of a hobby for mine, but I've been doing it for 15 years, so it's kind of turned into a big audience, and people like the guests that I bring on, the subjects that I talk about, because they interest me. So,
awesome.
You know, I declared 2018 to be the year of awakening because I saw so many people really waking up. And what I noticed as a trend indicator of this was the growth of the religious segment known as the nuns. I don't mean the nuns like, you know, the flying nun. I mean like the nuns of the above, none of the aboves. It means that people kind of graduated from religion. Now, there's a misnomer out there that the nuns are atheists, that they, you know, don't believe in God and all this stuff, and that's not true. They do believe in God. They have a very high level of spirituality. They've kind of graduated from organized religion. And this transition began happening slowly, but in 2018, it happened suddenly. And now in 2019, we're kind of in the year of light. And then here comes Lori, this sort of a light guide to help people make this transition from trudging through life 9 to 5, living their lives from paycheck to paycheck, to something much, much more satisfying. How did you get started in this?
How did I get started? Well, I got started. I was doing that. I was trudging through the 9 to 5, but it was more like not, 8 to 1 a.m. I did that for 20 years out of college. I was miserable. I called myself a good slave. I mean, I knew it the first week out of college. I was like, this is slavery. I don't get it. So anyway, during those 20 years, I developed all kinds of unhealthy behavioral adjustment, tools that you do. Like I became a smoker of 2 packs of cigarettes a day and a drinker of massive amounts of alcohol and a spender. I became a spending addict and ran up 6 figures in credit card debt. And my thyroid was off and my hair was falling out, and I was going to doctors for help, and I was eating the worst kind of junk food because I didn't know what healthy was. And then what ended up happening was my brother died of a drug overdose, basically.
Oh my.
And after he crossed over, very soon after that, I started hearing him like auditorily in my head. It wasn't stuff I was making up, And then I started asking for signs, like, if this is real and I'm not crazy, please help me to know, show me signs of this, and that. And it would always get validated, eventually to the point that I realized I was not imagining it. And I was practicing, developing, without realizing that's what I was doing, my ability to hear clairaudiently and see clairvoyantly and sense clairsentiently. And anyway, that message from him, that real message was that he was kind of like trapped because it was basically a drug suicide. I mean, he didn't necessarily mean for it to be a suicide going into it, but when he was in that altered state, I learned this from him in his afterlife, that was his choice not to come back. But he couldn't find his way out or through, and he needed help. And that was going to also help me. And then the other big message was like, you're kind of on a similar path. You're smoking, you're drinking, you're miserable, you're overweight. I was 65 pounds overweight and all these things. And he was like, you have to change your ways because otherwise you're going to end up like me. So I quit my 6-figure job, almost like with no security blanket, basically. And I became a dog trainer because I wanted to help animals. I had a mantra. I wanted to be of service to animals on a global scale. I didn't know what that meant. I thought I was going to be a dog trainer. But then I started hearing the dogs. I was working with them as a trainer, and I would hear them, and they would say, you listen to me, or you listen to us, and we will teach you. So they started teaching me about energy and animals and what animals are here for and how animals are helping humans and what their mission is. And I started getting pretty good at like telepathy with animals. And then I would practice it like over and over again. And then I got into the healing arts, right? I got my Reiki master. After that, I moved, somewhere in that time, I moved to Maui. I spent 2 years in Maui. I'll wrap up my story real quick here. And I had an induction experience in Maui. I call it an induction experience because it was literally what I now know, although I didn't know it then. I now know to be my star family. So an intergalactic tribe of star family races. I was teletransported in full consciousness in physical form, but it was not this sort of carbon-based body. It was very plasma-like. It was very altered state-ish, but it was not astral travel. It was real physical. I was there, transported onto ship. I had movement around the ship. I had interaction. I didn't know everything going on. There were upgrades and what I now call downloads and activations, and I didn't understand it at the time. There's more to that story, but basically at the end of that, I was teletransported back into my home, and then that's where it started to really unfold from there. That's where the massive shift happened. And after that, everything changed. Like my job had already started to change, and my work and my service had already started to change. But I immediately quit the smoking. It was like almost like my body just didn't want it. I immediately stopped drinking. I had those figures in debt started to just immediately go away because all the energy was shifting and changing, and my reality was shifting and changing. I was shifting and changing timelines without even realizing. Within 2 years, I was completely, I would say, transformed. And that's where my real work started.
Now, did you become debt-free during this time? You began to unload a lot of the extra things you were packing around. There were third-dimensional things that didn't mean a lot to you anymore, and you started to get more into the energetic life. And I could hear it in your voice that this was happening to you. But what was happening to the people that you were meeting with, that you were interacting with? You weren't just interacting with puppies, you were also interacting with humans. Tell me about that.
Well, first, the thing is, I went away to Maui when that abduction and induction first contact experience happened. I was already living in Maui, so I didn't know anyone there. I had basically left behind all the people from my past. I didn't deliberately do that, but I did know that I had to disentangle myself from my family dynamic. And there was a lot of like verbal, emotional, mental abuse I grew up with, and a lot of like, just control, like my family was very controlling in what they wanted me to do or believed I should do and all of that. So I had to free myself from that. But in Maui during those 2 years, I really had no contact with anyone other than like clients whose dog I was training or, the local Maui Humane Society. So they weren't aware of any kind of transformation happening for me. People didn't know. And in truth, I now understand that period of time was really a period of aloneness for 2 years on purpose, because I really was kind of losing my mind in a way. I mean, you start losing your mind, you start realizing, I'm saying you, but it was me, but this is what happens when people go through a radical, it was a dark night of the soul for 2 years of just having to completely unpack every belief system that I ever believed was true, real, and right. That wasn't. Everything was just being completely detoxified, in a sense, from my consciousness, my body, my being, my life, my living. So, but the debt, to tell you about that part, was, like I lost everything. I lost all my physical items. I had no money, and I had to sell a lot. And I definitely learned that important lesson that we do learn, that materialism is not our happiness, is not our joy, does not fulfill us, and in the big picture does not really matter. And if it controls us, it's a problem. So
I think that's the bigger lesson there, that, and I know people that have, wealth, but it doesn't control them. It doesn't dominate them. They could walk away from it in a moment. What I find, even with people who really don't have anything yet, it's the lust for those things that controls them. I see that when, I interact with people too, and I'm sure you do as a life coach. You meet people that are so focused on accumulating wealth as far as physical things in his life. They think that will make them happy, and that's what they're focused on. And it's really that lust that's making them unhappy.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I think what a lot of it is we are literally energetically wired in this reality for a kind of, or at least in the old third dimensional paradigm, for this kind of, we're wired and programmed into this kind of energetic schism that's always making us look external to us for our fulfillment and satisfaction. And in our paradigm, there's this programming that says something outside of you is going to make you happy and fulfilled. And most of the time that's perceived to be something materialistic, car, house, that whole routine. You have to reprogram yourself. That's part of the consciousness journey, is to really start to identify everything within us, every aspect of us that entangles us into the old paradigm. And that makes us believe that stuff is real.
When I was young, the car is what I really wanted. I wanted the fast car. I wanted the gleaming car. And when it was dirty, I was unhappy. And it was waxed and clean, I was happy. But, I left those things behind a long, long time ago. The first bullet point on your website, by the way, if I have it posted there for everyone to see, it's lauriespagna.com. I highly recommend, if you don't need to see us, go visit her website while we're on tonight, or if you're listening to the archive, make sure I'll put the link in the YouTube too, in the extra notes at the bottom, so you can click on that. Go, there's a wealth of information there. But this first point, and I saw you touch on it with your story, it's ascension and awakening of humanity and planet Earth. That ascension experience can be very disorienting for people. And if you don't have a guide right after that happens, you're going to stumble around kind of lost for a while. I think that's what you did on your own because you didn't have a guide, but now you are a guide, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I think that's sort of the way this ascension process on Earth has been sort of set up. It's like the way I see it is we have a whole group of early awakeners who are like what I call pre-wavers or seed tenders. What I mean by seed tending the soil to plant the seeds, like that started with John Lennon, Martin Luther King, JFK. You know, they were murdered on purpose, right? But then you had like another wave of that same group: Dolores Cannon, Michael Beckwith, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Marianne Williamson, and they're seed tenders, like soil tenders. So tending the soil to make sure the seeds, the star seeds and light workers could be fertile soil for us.
Not fall on a hot, wet, hot, dry sidewalk. They fell into fertile soil that could kind of get their roots in, learn how to breathe, learn how to meditate, learn that there are higher vibrations they need to seek after. And these early trainers helped everybody do that.
Yes. And then, so then what you have is your first wavers, which are the seeds, the star seeds, like us, the early embodiers who are really embodying these new frequencies that are meant to be really anchored into the earth, we put the roots of that new frequency into the earth. We are the seeds that planted that energy into the earth and connected with the inner earth desire, Mother Earth's true desire for her humanity to awaken. So we made that connection. We bridged that connection with the higher realms. That's first wavers, first embodiers. And we were really all online and activated by 2011.
Why is that important that we get connected to the earth? I mean, doesn't ascension mean you're going to ascend off of the earth?
Not in my point of view.
Aha, exactly. All right. Tell me about that.
Well, this is really about the liberation of humanity. That's to me what ascension is, the liberation from this old 3D matrix, which is basically controlled matrix, which is controlled by basically fear, control, domination, manipulation, coercion, secrecy, secret covert agendas. The fear frequency is the primary control. Fear, worry, doubt, anxiety, frustration, lack, limitation. That's the third dimensional paradigm, and that's what we've all been living in. So in order for that paradigm for us to be freed from that, someone from within the paradigm had to prepare it, the soil, for star seeds who really resonate more generally, like from a little bit more off planet. We resonate more with that, but we were born here. We're really American, like Earth, not necessarily American, but just we're from Earth. We're Earth beings, but we resonate as off planet because that's our true frequency. Sure. So these people within this matrix had to prepare for us to come here because our frequency is so high that if they didn't set the stage even to make it possible for us to inhabit here, we couldn't have. So then when we anchored into the earth and brought this frequency here into earth bodies, merged our star race being or our light worker being, with our human origin, merged the two. We are so fully embodied now. We're not worried about shame. We're not worried about this old system because our frequency is love and peace.
Right.
And benevolence.
I was talking about the protests that have been happening. They've been happening for several months, several different countries. But I was really impressed with the Lebanese today. They held hands all the way across their country, tens of thousands of people.
They want to cry.
In protest to global the global syndicate, global dominance against government. It's really a tremendous show of peace and love. All these people coming together and holding hands. You imagine the energy pulse from that. All of the togetherness that happened because of that.
That's so beautiful. Well, that's what we're seeing. See, those are great examples of how humanity's second wave is now really activated. To me, that's like the second wavers. They're the demonstration of what humanity is going to become. So they're basically taking the behaviors of love and peace And they're not working so much with the non-physical realm as the first wavers are, but they're taking all the behaviors and all the energy of love and peace and kindness and care and compassion into the real world, into the physical reality. And that's a great example. That's
By the way,
awesome.
Jen in California, on the total other side of the country from you, she says, we're winning. So she's listening.
Oh, I love
right
that.
now.
I will say, from that perspective, I believe it's already done. So my perspective was that in 2012, you basically had a choice point that many people were conscious of and many people weren't conscious of. And that choice point was an ascending timeline or a descending timeline.
Sure.
And the descending timeline was a fear-based hell in a handbasket, life is over on planet Earth timeline. And the ascending timeline was one of hope and peace and prosperity for all and liberation. And we're all on that timeline. To me, it's as good as done. The only issue is how will it play out? And we're seeing it. We're seeing it play out. It's playing out.
I'm in my observation, because I'm more locked into the corporate world because of who I work with. I didn't see that we're all there. What I saw was a divergence in 2012. I saw a grand division, two timelines formed, in other words. One, this higher vibrational timeline that seems to be taking Earth with it. And the other one is left behind in the cold rock and metal world that was in orbit around the sun. And I think mankind is beginning to divide that way as well. And I think what we're beginning to see, and we're really, really seeing it in government right now, is that some government officials who are locked into that darker side, they're losing control over those with the higher vibration, and they don't know what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there is anything they can do about it because we're going to go anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're making a choice, when you're making a conscious choice towards love and peace and unity and the greater good of all, because that is the desire for humanity. That is the choice for humanity, the greater good of all. You can either make that choice to begin behaving that way, or you can make a choice to not be that way, but you will be basically dropping out of your life, or things will get incredibly hard on you, or you will lose your important connection. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Well, you can't serve two masters for sure. So the next bullet point, and I'm trying to move us along. We had about 35 minutes left in this segment. We're going to take a break in 5 minutes, and then we'll do another half-hour segment. And if we're having fun, we'll just keep going, Lori. You said the evolutionary shift of consciousness, our dormant potential and sacred energy. And I think that's where we are right now. We're making this evolutionary shift. And, you know, it's not the food. I'm telling you that. What it is, I think in 1996, we had this neural network dropped over us called the internet. We really didn't know what to do with it. We didn't even know what a freaking browser was in 1996. So here we are 23 years later. 23 years is nothing. It's like a fraction of a generation. And for my generation, it's an upgrade. I mean, I remember phones you used to have to dial with your finger, and we didn't have caller ID. We didn't know who was calling. Now we have, you know, this neural network that is connecting souls all over the planet. And we can come together at conferences or webinars like you put on, or interviews like we're doing right now. You know, thousands of people listening live, and hundreds of thousands will listen to the archives over time. We're connecting those people to these messages that they know are out there. But in doing this, we're allowing the entire race that's willing to listen to it to evolve. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has been a huge gift for us, because what we know is that the only fake news is on mass media. That's where the real fake news is. So this has been our liberation tool.
Yeah, it really has, because all we really had before was, you know, news at 11, and then we had 24-hour news after 1991. We didn't even know how to deal with that. But we didn't know really that they were lying to us all those years. Now we do, because we have truth getting out there. We have America Free Radio. We have Truth Frequency Radio. We have BBS Radio. We have Conscious Media Network. All these sources are out there for truth to get to people directly. And now we've figured out that the fake stream news has been propagandizing us for practically our entire lives.
Yeah. We call that mind control.
Yeah. Well, they understand the formula. They know that if they could use our consciousness battery, let's just call it a little generator, each one of us is a little power generator. By ourselves, we're not much, but you put a few million of us together, it's a formidable amount of power. They know this, and they're using us as their batteries by feeding us their message and making us resonate their reality for the future.
Yes. But I mean, one of the most important choices you can make is to just literally continue to tell the universe with no resistance or judgment at all, with no push-pull, simply, I'm done with that. No, thank you. I'm not interested in that any longer. No, thank you. It's against, even to say in a neutral way, it's against my free will for that to continue. Yeah. Whatever that is, if it's massive brain control cover up in the mass media, whether it's lies in the pharmaceutical drug industry, whether it's genetically modified food, when you start telling the laws of the universe that it is against your free will, and you're not arguing or debating, you're just saying it as statement of fact, the law of intent, consent, and authority must honor. In fact, it will, because that's what it does. It's the law. It's universal law. So if people just even understood that this is so powerful, just every individual, that law will not ignore your vote. That law will not rig your vote. That law listens to your vote. So when you say universal law of free will, aka intent, consent, and authority, it is against my free will for genetically modified foods to continue to exist on our planet. Thank you for Thank you for honoring this. It takes that into account. Then the law of synchronicity, there's all kinds of laws, but the law of synchronicity comes in and synchronizes all who agree with that frequency and creates reality timeline where that is done. Mm-hmm. And you, in your neutrality, line up with it. And this is a complicated subject matter, and I realized I stuck it 5 minutes before we had a break, but it's helpful to know we have great power and the universe is listening.
Yeah, we do. There are, of course, I'm a mathematician, so I deal a lot in adding these energies together and what the formulas look like, what the mathematical models look like. And in my live lecture, I take people through the entire light, sound, resonance of all this and why these rules actually work.
Yeah, that's so awesome, Brooks. That we should talk about with the laws. Like oh my God, that's such good juicy stuff that you just said. That's how you apply it in everyday life, what you're saying.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break in about 8 seconds, 10 seconds. My guest tonight, Lori Spagna. She has several books out. I'm going to put them up during the break. Okay, I muted the studio for the YouTubers, because a lot of YouTubers are watching live right now, so they don't have to listen to the news and that music and everything. So we're just going to talk off the air for about 3 minutes.
For about 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, how's it going?
Well, it's going well. I mean, people lined up in the chat room. I can't read it because it goes too fast.
Oh, I can't see that either. I just posted another thing on Facebook though, but can I open the chat room on the side? Open conversation?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to my YouTube channel, open the chat room, and you can look at the top chat that's going on in there right now. We got, let's see, Diane is out there, Zaid is out there.
Whatever I'm doing, I'm not getting the chat. My thing is open with you.
Yeah, well, are you looking at YouTube?
I'm looking at that screen on the side that says close conversation, open conversation.
Well, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Brooks Agnew. Just YouTube /
Is that
Brooks
where
Agnew.
all that is?
Yeah, that's where it's live right now. That's where the chat is. You can see the chat on the feed, but you can't. I don't think you can interact with it. You could just read it. There should be a chat feed going on there. I think there is anyway. Oh, maybe not on the break screen. Maybe I can add it here. Let me add it real quick.
Okay. Oh, maybe that's why I can't see, because it's not on the break screen. But now I'm on your channel. Live stream. This is so cool. But is that going to make the sound weird?
That's where it's live right now. That's where the chat is.
Yes,
you can
it
see
will.
the chat on the
I see you now.
feed,
Yeah,
but
so
you
have
can't.
to
I don't
turn
think
your-
you can
Oh,
interact
yeah,
with
that's
it.
so
Just read
fun.
it. There should be a chat feed going on there.
Yeah,
I think
it is,
there is
but
anyway.
it didn't
maybe not
create
on the
a-
break screen. Maybe I can add it here. Let me
Take
add
that
it real
off.
quick.
Oh, maybe that's why I can't see, because it's not on the break screen. But
see, now
I'm on
there's
your
an
channel.
echo, though.
Yes. So turn the YouTube off or the sound
This is
off on the
cool.
YouTube.
But is that going to make the sound weird?
That's
Yes,
where it's
it
live
will.
right now. That's where the chat
Okay,
is. You
I
can see
can't
the
keep
chat.
that on.
All right.
I just turned it off because it
Okay.
creates an echo,
That's
but
good.
that's cool. I can see it.
All right. So everything is going well. Let me get back to the. Yeah, we got about 40 seconds, and we'll come back on.
Good.
All right. So this is live radio, and we do all kinds of experimentation while we're on live radio. Have no fear. You're safely traveling with us. I'm going to bring Lori back on here in just a second, and let's see here. Here we go.
Wildfires through bone-dry vegetation. CAL FIRE Division Chief Jonathan Cox.
We had fire activity that increased, spotting ahead of itself, and burning into some of the closer areas to the more more populated spots in the county.
In about 5 minutes, the Houston Astros and Washington Nationals will play in Game 5 of the World Series. I'm Evan.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Hey, real quick, YouTubers, I wanted to let you know that January 11th, I'm going to be in Seattle, and we're going to be at the SeaTac. We're going to be talking about, it's a 5.5-hour lecture and workshop. We're going to be talking about just what we were talking about at the end of the last break, about resonance theory. Yes, there's a lot of math, there's a lot of science, there will be exams at the end of it. I'm kidding. But I promise that in that 5.5 hours, you're going to come away understanding at least where the origin of the golden mean is. And this is really important because these laws that we're talking about have a basis in mathematics and physics. So this lecture really is about the physics of the soul. And once you understand the physics of the soul, there's a lot of things that will begin to make sense to you. What is under your control and what requires repeated activity in order to create resonance. And once you get along the golden mean, which is 1.618 to 1, this rate of increase, then you're starting to obey the principles of the universe that allow things to constructively interfere with one another. And that is how, even with just the faith of a mustard seed applied at exactly the right moment, over and over again, you can move mountains. So that's January 20th in Seattle and then January 18th in Charlotte. You can access both of those by going to my website, brooksagnew.com, brooksagnew.com. Go to the life coaching link and click on the Eventbrite event. So let's go ahead and bring Lori's video back in. There's her beautiful face. And I want to talk about this role of dormant DNA. You know, we have The Human Genome Project revealed a lot of things that surprised us. My brother was chairman of physiology at Johns Hopkins for a number of years. So when they started the Human Genome Project, he spent more time in D.C. getting grants to pay grad students and buy equipment so they could study the human genome. And what they expected to find is not exactly what they found, because they had looked into primates for a number of years. And what they discovered in primates is that they have a fair amount of gene pairs, a lot of gene pairs. They expected, because humans are much more complex, obviously, we're all that, right? That there were going to be more gene pairs in the human than there was the ape. And they were very surprised to find out there were only about half as many gene pairs as there were in the ape. So it led them to the inescapable conclusion that genes have a choice of proteins that they can make. And that's why the limited number of gene pairs that humans have can make such a large variety of proteins to sustain all the physiology of the human body. But that being said, there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, they call it junk DNA. It's dormant DNA. It's there. Obviously, it didn't evolve to do anything because it doesn't do anything that we can see. What is dormant DNA, Lori, and how do you define the role of this DNA and activate it?
Well, this is one of my favorite topics ever. So first, let's understand the first two strands of DNA that we've been working with as, normal everyday human DNA. What we're talking about there really is the records from the ancestors. So it's your lineage, right? And we know that, I inherited this and I didn't inherit that, and it's activated, right? It's fully activated in the sense that there's records there. And in my language, the way I explain that is it's mostly corrupted, in the sense that if you got something in your DNA that says you have breast cancer in your DNA, or you have lymphoma in your DNA from your ancestors, that's actually corrupted. It's not really true. What it is your ancestors did not, what I say is they did not claim the gifts associated with their divinity, and that record is left there of their dis-ease with reality, their dis-ease with reality and with the reality of how they lived. So a really good example, going back to the breast cancer, is when someone's got breast cancer, it has to do with the nurturing that they gave and or received, the nurturing that was passed down through lineages. And when we're talking about cancer, we're talking about anger, resentment, grudges. So someone was at dis-ease with the nurturing they received and or the nurturing they gave and the nurturing that was passed down. And that is coded into the first two strands of DNA as a gift waiting to be claimed. But we don't see it that way in our regular society. So if you claim the gift of forgiveness, this is not just a mental construct, you have to embody it and clear out the corruption from the DNA. Okay, that's just the first two strands. And I'm not even beginning to go into the first two strands of corrupted DNA, because you've got everyday society is functioning from those first two strands. So for example, if you look on like CNN or, Chronic News Negative Network, or any kind of news type of network, basically what you've got is the divide and conquer program going. Two talking heads arguing the same kind of points in a different way. Debate, divide, conquer. Divide and conquer is running in all of DNA for every human. It's like white, black, women, men, Russia, the United States. I mean, it goes on and on and on, divide and conquer programming. Also in there is hate programming. It's literally what lets people hate each other. It's corrupted DNA. It's not even authentically human. It's inserted corruption.
I get that. Yeah. I think that there are people, maybe through no fault of their own, but I think that there are people that are born evil on this planet. They just are born bad, and they're bad their entire short lives. There are other people who learn to be bad. They're taught to be bad, and they can unlearn being bad. They can be forgiven. They can have a mighty change of heart. but I've been around. I've seen enough of the world. I've been in some pretty bad places, and I can tell you there are bad people on this planet.
Well, I mean, I get that, but I also get that that's associated with the old paradigm and an old program that's basically extinct. It's running extinct. So it's not the original human divine blueprint. The original divine blueprint for the original human is not in any way corrupted or bad, but we have been corrupted as a human civilization. So that's all coded in the DNA. And I could go on about that stuff because it really needs to be cleared out. I mean, you got stuff like sexual misery programs that make people ashamed about their gender, their sex, their race. They don't know how to enjoy sexual pleasure. There's guilt and shame entangled in there. That a lot of that is all corrupted. I mean, you can go on and on and on about stuff that's in the first 2 strands of DNA that is like suicidal programs. In order to smoke cigarettes or do anything that could kill you, in order to do something that could kill you, you in your DNA have a corrupted program called suicide program. Yeah. That stuff can be cleared out. It really can be cleared out, and it completely transforms your experience. But that's only the first 2 strands of DNA. Then we have another 10 strands, which, as you said earlier, Brooks, is called junk. Well, now it's called dormant because we know it can be activated. And that's where we start connecting with our humans, our super potential. We start expanding beyond our 3rd dimensional reality and awakening our gifts that are within us. And we also are able to connect to other dimensions of reality way beyond our own. And then I could spend hours talking about that too, but that's at least a foundation for our understanding. And everyone can activate it. It's waiting dormant for us.
Yeah, there's one thing that's interesting when you start getting into more of the advanced instruments that are out there. I was visiting the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. We call it LIGO for short, or LIGO. And there's 2 of them. There is one in Hanford, Washington. There's one in Livingston, Louisiana. I've worked at both of them short periods of time to do some learning. And I was at the one in Hanford, Washington. I was talking with Dr. Fred Robb, who ran that facility at that time. And he said the strangest thing to me, because we're, as chemists, as physicists, we're kind of rooted in the 3rd dimension. He says, we have particles popping into our dimension from another dimension. That took me by surprise. We're standing in the lab, and I said, Fred, you realize what you just told me? He said, yeah, but I'm telling you, this instrument's sensitive enough that we're picking up particles popping into our dimension from another dimension. And I said, well, technically speaking, particles, photons, are information. So technically speaking, you're telling me there's information coming into our dimension from another dimension. He said, that's exactly what I'm saying. So here we have the physics that this is occurring. And I would venture to say that information is also leaving our dimension and going to another dimension. In other words, there's an exchange and communications that Stephen Hawking and Dr. Kip Thorne and Amit Goswami and Dr. Ed Close and myself, and let's not leave out Sir Roger Penrose. All of us are talking about this multidimensionality of energy and matter. And we're realizing that there is a causation, which we call consciousness now. But in those days, we really didn't have an understanding of it. We only had an understanding of 4 forces in the universe. We had, gravity. We had the strong and weak molecular forces, and we had electromagnetism. We understood those forces. We can measure those forces. We can't really resolve the quantum with the macro, but we understand those 4 forces. And then here comes this 5th force of consciousness, and it's a very high baud rate. It's a very fast operating force in the universe, and it appears to be, now we're pretty much convinced, at least the theoretical physicists and myself, that it's the primary force in the universe. So now we've caught up with you, Lori.
Well, I love that. I mean, I love the way the science and the spiritual metaphysical have merged now. I have always been fascinated by the scientific aspect of it. And even though I only have learned it from layman's terms, in all of my teachings and everything I share with my community and tribe, I'm always doing my very best to bridge the science with the spirit in practical ways and in terms that make sense to us, that are factual at the same time. And I remember, like, even when I first started waking up to this stuff, I was into it that way because I had so many people around me who were just looking to discredit it back then as a woo-woo. So I always wanted the scientific facts to back it up.
Oh, it's nice to have the data. I'm a big data person, believe me. It's always best to have the data. I was a math instructor at a college level, and I mean, you teach the textbook and people learn it and they take the tests and they go their merry way. But when you're trying to teach them how to think mathematically, how to consider the forces in the universe from a mathematical point of view, you begin to see relationships, and you can back it up with functions and formulas and rational and irrational numbers, but you can at least in some sense quantify it. Then it begins to make sense even for people who are not so woo-woo. So there is a way to do it, but there are only a couple of us out there that have actually succeeded in doing it. I just haven't spoken to too many people live about it because conferences are top secret.
I don't know if that's so true, but you're so off the charts advanced in your knowing from the scientific perspective that it's just for laymen. I mean, my way of communicating it is in very layman's terms. You're just so very advanced in that scientifically. It's really interesting to talk to you about it on that level because you have that perspective where you can back it up with such scientific fact. It's not just an interpretation of what it means. It's like, no, this is what it is. That's pretty cool.
I can bring it to layman's terms, but it usually requires some scotch. All right, let me go.
All right.
Let me talk about the next one here. Activations aligning with the divine source within and unity consciousness and our interconnectedness with our galactic connection and our star family faces. That's a big one, but there was a movie out that was called Powder, I think it was. And there was a line you remember that? And there was a line in the movie where he's sitting on the picnic table, and he's an odd-looking character anyway because he's just Snow White. But he says something like, they try to teach us that we're separated from everything, but that's absolutely wrong. We're connected to everything. And his gift, when he could touch you, he could connect you with that consciousness that flows through everything, like the Force almost. And like the hunter, he connected him with the pain that the deer he shot was feeling. And then he gave up hunting and stopped carrying a gun because he then had empathy with the pain he was inflicting on the animals. This, I think, is a very powerful thing. It'll go a long way toward mankind beginning to be good stewards of the planet. Instead of a whole bunch of rules and laws and fines and blah, 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 and armies and all that, just not screwing up the planet is something that becomes innate to you because you feel what the planet feels.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the really interesting things about activating the dormant DNA is that in order to get to any of the strands of DNA beyond the first two, in order to even really be able to activate anything that lasts, you actually have to already have the compassion. The heart has to be open enough. The center of the heart has to be open enough that you exhibit and embody the frequency of compassion. You actually have to have a gene of compassion activated. So, and I don't know if science identifies that, but that's actually from the work that I do. That's true. Otherwise, the activations won't really stick. So, but in our community, people already have that, right? You don't usually come to DNA activation calls unless you already have a good amount of compassion. But that's just a basic foundation for it, is that you really care about people and animals and earth, and that you really understand, at least to some degree, that everybody is just, doing their best to be whatever it is their version of life is. They're just, whether they're conscious or unconscious, they're just trying to survive on a planet that's basically rigged for survival of the fittest, and lies, manipulation, coercions, secrecy, all that stuff. So, once you start having compassion for that, that's when you have the gateway or portal, so to speak, to be able to access these other strands.
There's, for lack of a better word, there's a mechanics to compassion. And in religion, traditionally we call it prayer. I mean, just a big whitewashed big word, prayer. But there are actually several levels to prayer. And prayer works on several different levels. Like, for instance, the first level of prayer is the prayer over meals and the prayer before you go to bed, and simple prayers. I mean, should you stop them? No. That's fine. Change the molecular structure of your food before you eat it. All that's great. Then the second level of prayer is where we're kind of pouring our hearts out to Spirit or God or the higher power, your higher self. You're pouring your heart out for you. For woe is me. Hey, why am I not eating? How come I don't have a place to live? What do I need to learn here? I mean, all this pouring out for ourselves. And I think by and large, that doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of goes out and rattles the wind. But the highest level of prayer is this compassion level of prayer. And that's where we pray for other people. And I think that's the way, in my opinion, prayer was designed to be all along. I pray for you, you pray for me. This level of compassion puts us in touch with a real power, and it brings in this, let's just use the word divine energy, because it's the right thing to do. It activates this compassion gene in you. And the scriptures, all the scriptures talk about it incessantly, about praying for others, and is really the strongest level of prayer. I have to go back to the life of Jesus every once in a while. I'm not a big evangelical person, but let me just explain what I mean. Jesus didn't have a very long mission here. He didn't own anything. He didn't own any property. He didn't own a car. He didn't have a bank account or a 401k, nothing. But he affected the world, because he did not come here to teach us of his divinity. That was obvious to everybody that got close to him. He came here to teach us of our divinity. And I think the churches just corrupted that, because they put themselves between you and God. And that's why I think the nuns are now the largest religion in the country. A non-affiliated human being who has a direct connection to God, because after all, I think it's a local call. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that, religion has been really, this is a tenuous ground because I don't know your community, but I will just say from my perspective, all religion has been corrupted. So it's not that there's not good stuff in there. There is good stuff, but nobody would ever have bought into it if there wasn't real good stuff in there. It's all corrupted. Right. But Jesus, the human being, was a real human being who achieved mastery. And his frequency at that time of his physical embodiment was such a high frequency compared to what the frequency of Earth was at that time, and humanity that was just basically such a low, heavy, dense, like slave kind of misery frequency. So that frequency that he brought forward really, ultimately, you could say one master transformed a whole planet in a sense. But there have been other masters like him in different religions, Buddha, for example. I mean, it's not the people that are at question with religion. It's just the organized structure of it is of an old paradigm that has been completely infiltrated. Anyway, I think is that what you were, I'm just adding to what you were talking about.
Yeah, but
I think in terms of the nuns, and I don't know.
I think that's absolutely right, because Jesus, when he came here, he didn't establish a church. He didn't say, hey, I'm going to build a new church. In fact, he kind of was at odds with the church that was established at the time. And I'm reminded of one time when his disciples came to him because they've been hanging around him for a while, and they saw him confound the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes, which are basically lawyers and politicians of the day. And they said, he probably knows the answer to this because, frankly, we have a whole bunch of laws, they said. I mean, we have laws for everything, how to eat corn, how to leave a cornfield, how to walk around a church. And we just want to know, you're a smart guy, which is the greatest law? Let's just get that down. It's a logical question to ask a master, right? What's the number one thing that I need to be doing? And Jesus responded pretty quickly because he said, and of course this is written in Greek, so I'm just going to say it the way it was written and then I'll say it the way it was meant. He said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, might, and mind. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Upon these hang all the laws and all the prophets. Well, that's in Greek. In Greek, they like to write things in deductive syllogisms, which are premises and proof. But let me read it back to you the way I think it was meant. Here's the highest law. Love yourself. And then when you can love yourself, you'll be able to love your neighbor. And when you love your neighbor as yourself, you'll be loving God with all your heart and might and mind. Now that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the other way around is like I've been handed the big end of the bat and told to go to the plate and hit a home run.
Right. Well, the thing about that is, too, I mean, if you just think about the new paradigm that we're shifting into, that shift is already done. It's just we're catching up in terms of our consciousness. But the new fifth dimensional paradigm, that is this new reality that's really based on love and peace and unity consciousness, those frequencies and that vibration is the vibration of Christ consciousness. That is the consciousness that Christ had. But that consciousness is also based on crystalline consciousness. So the crystals in Mother Earth, in the inner earth, that's crystalline consciousness. That's Christ consciousness. Mm-hmm. So it's not about a religion necessarily, but it is based on love yourself, just as you were saying. Then love your neighbor. That's unity. And then when you love yourself and your neighbor as one, that's when you love God. That's oneness. And oneness is your divinity with and your alignment with that divine source. However, experience and understand it, it is a frequency of love and peace, a vibration of love and peace. And it is a consciousness that is omnipresent, omni-aware, eternal consciousness. So we're just coming into an alignment with that. And that's what the awakening is within us, because we're starting to come into the embodiment of those frequencies of love and peace and unity consciousness and alignment with our own divinity, and the recognition that this consciousness is everything, everywhere, in everyone. And there's nowhere that it's not.
Will you stay for another segment? Because I want to talk about, I think this transcends time, and I think it transcends the distances of space. I want to bring all this, if we can. And then, can you stay for another half hour?
Would love to.
Okay, we'll be right back after this. Don't go away. Right after this. Hang with us. You YouTubers, just hang out. We'll try not to go off the air. I'll just let you listen to the news. It's not that big a deal. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
It's amazing how people have been raving about ILife all over Facebook. They've been posting their testimonials just because they want to get the word out because it's worked so well for them. If you're not familiar with ILife, it's a 99% pure CBD oil. But the secret is the synergy between the hemp and the ayahuasca vine, the non-psychoactive component of the ayahuasca tea. We recently received an email from a wife whose husband has Parkinson's. For the first time, he's been able to sleep through the entire night. Another customer reported that they're no longer using NSAIDs because their tennis elbow has been relieved with ILife. The reports have been phenomenal and much more than we ever expected. Everyone should have access to this. That's why if you head on over to ialife.com right now and use coupon code TFR, we'll give you $5 towards your order. And we'll even ship it worldwide. That's ialife.com. AYA life.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the Live Scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Ironworks. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with me too, cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with triviality so fear-filled and grim, break clear of the fear right here. Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks. Break clear of the fear.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
To X Squared Radio, America Free Radio, here on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we do let our Truth Freak flag fly. We are live every Sunday evening between 8 and 11, which means we're live right now. No, I mean like right now we're live. And that means that you can call in. The number is 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. Any question at all, we will take. One of the things that you realize when you get to this point in this discussion between this line between, or I'll say it, interface between the physical and the metaphysical, and you become awakened with respect to this depth of knowledge, you realize that you're an eternal being having a mortal experience. And now lifespans are, we live the age of a tree now. We can live over 100 years easily. Just take care of yourself. You can maybe be able to live longer than that. In Jesus' day, the average lifespan was about 40. So, I mean, you just got a cut on your foot, you got infected, and you died. Nowadays, we can take care of ourselves, but we realize very early on in our lives, and maybe some of us never realize this, I should be so general, that we can begin drawing on information, knowledge, memories that we have that go back thousands, maybe millions of years, hundreds, maybe thousands of lifetimes. And we realize also that Earth is probably not the only planet in the universe with intelligent life on it. And I have to tell you, one time we were sitting around the campfire, me and my other physics buddies. Yes, we're all geeks. But we were trying to calculate the odds of a carbon-based universe. And we had some pretty large numbers. We were like 10 to the 99th somewhere, and the scotch was running low. And I said, I think I got this figured out. I think the odds of a carbon-based universe is 1. It's 1. Only carbon-based universes can form. All universes are made of 2 particles, protons and electrons. There are no other particles. No other particles are possible because of the resonance of energy and the fact that protons are these holographic particles that vary in weight but not really in function. There is no example of another kind of particle in our universe anywhere. I mean, we have subatomic particles, but they're just pieces of protons. So we realize that maybe we're connected not only across distance, because we don't measure distance in terms of miles in space, we measure distance in terms of time in space. And if we're connected with intelligence over time, then we're connected with intelligence over distance. So I want to get more into this idea that you bring up of us being a star family. How significant is that in your teaching, and why is it important that people realize that they're more than just this physical body in this lifetime?
Wowza. Well, first, we're all star family. We've been controlled basically by malevolent star family races. We've been infused with DNA that's not even organically human. Let's put it that way. But all of our DNA is we're like a Noah's Ark in a sense on planet Earth. So the question is what do you resonate with? I mean, that's really what it is. It's just more a matter of like, for me, the idea that star family races are already here. They are already among us. They are already interacting with us. That's my reality. I interact with them all the time. Not as much in the physical form, in a non-physical way, but sometimes in a physical way, very less frequently. But the point is that they're really the guardians, in a sense, of our earthly reality as we awaken. They're just here helping us because we're sharing space and time with them. So from a spiritual perspective, space and time is just a construct of consciousness. So in our physical 3D reality, our 3D reality includes height, width, and depth, which is space in and of itself by definition, and time, because time is space. Time is space. From a spiritual perspective, that's the 3rd dimensional reality. And a 4th dimensional reality is everything non-physical, including perspectives. So if my perspective is that time goes by like this, I'm going to experience time like this. Time is not a constant. So if my perspective is that time is dragging on, I'm going to experience time dragging on, even if I believe myself to experience 24 hours, because time is not a constant. So that's all just part of a 3rd dimensional reality. And a 4th dimensional reality is where non-physical consciousness, including things like entities, demonics, thoughts, emotions, energy, all kinds of things exist. The astral realm. I mean, you could go on and on about what's in this 4th dimension of ghosts. I mean, it's all in there. And the thing is, in the 3rd dimensional consciousness, nobody believes it's real. Well, they don't believe it's real because they're not at a frequency match to start interacting with it in a conscious way. And as you become conscious and you start moving through this 4th dimensional reality in a conscious way, maybe through astral travel, maybe you had to learn about entities, maybe you actually saw ghosts, maybe you had angelic visitors who came in and connected with you, or loved ones who crossed over and communicated with you, or whatever. you start moving beyond this kind of belief system and into experiences knowing.
Well,
And
I
then
get that.
as you move through that, that's when you start connecting with these higher frequency beings beyond 4D who are absolutely loving and benevolent. And that's when you know star family races.
The idea that, you know, maybe we came from somewhere else. Right now, there are almost 8 billion people alive on the earth at one time. To say that, you know, all those souls are reincarnated from just this planet doesn't make a lot of mathematical sense. What you and I probably are in agreement about is that there are many people alive here on this planet who they're human. I mean, they're a soul in a body. They're a spirit in a body making a soul, and here we are. But that intelligence came from another world.
Yes.
And that when we arrived here, because we're newbies here, it's a whole new gravity, it's a whole new sun, it's a whole new day, it's a whole new paradigm. We're out of sync with this reality. And it takes us a while. Well, we do one of two things. We either fit in, or since we're built to stand out, we don't fit in and we begin creating our own space. Some of us are powerful enough to do that. Others buckle under and feel so out of place with this life that we never excel. We never get in the groove of being a human on this planet.
Well, what I would say is that, first of all, in the DNA, there's, I think I mentioned this earlier, there's something called an original divine blueprint. And every species, every race has its own original divine, I should say species, has its own original divine blueprint. And then there are subgroups of sub-divine blueprints. And then every unique individual has their own unique original divine blueprint as well. So, for example, your thumbprint is an example of an original pattern of years that nobody else has. And the same is true in your DNA. You have certain genes in there, codes that are unique to you and nobody else. No precise exact match exists in anyone else. And your perfect divine blueprint, in fact, the original divine blueprint for humans does not include death, disease, and decay, not the way we have experienced it.
Sure.
It does not include aging, sickness, and illness, not the way we have experienced it, not at all. It's a perfect blueprint for perfect health and well-being. Now, if you start with just that as a foundation, once you get that activated in you, your entire life will start to change just based on that one thing. Because, for example, now I know I'm about to go out on a limb here. I realize this is out there, but the need to eat meat, for those of you who are into the star families, you'll understand that is a reptilian program. So that actually, reptiles need to eat dead animals to survive. Humans don't. We might believe we do, we might perceive that we do, but we don't. If that programming gets cleared out of the corrupted DNA, you will find that maybe you might choose to start practicing breathing in the sun or breatharian techniques, or maybe suddenly you're just going to start being called to do juicearian or juice more or vegetarian, or maybe just suddenly your body wants more beans, whatever. The point is that's not really authentic to the human design. Another really good example, and then I'll move on from this, is just sunburn. Sun burns reptilians. Sun will kill reptiles if they get too much of it. So that has been given to us to help us, but it's not really truthful to the human genome, to the original human. The sun actually helps activate DNA. The sun actually heals your body. The sun actually alleviates depression. The sun can feed you when you learn how to do sun gazing in a healthy way. So this is a perfect example of how humans have been, miscoded in an old paradigm, and how we're awakening more of our true original blueprint changes and shifts us and the way we live.
Well, I agree with that. I think that we have I have a little different DNA now since I've been through gene therapy. But right now our atmosphere is very thin, and it means that in about 15 minutes or less, I get a full 8 hours of my limit of exposure to UV radiation. I have no melanin in my skin anymore. So I can't resolve sunlight very well. I can take minutes of it at a time, but I can't, beyond 15 minutes, my skin begins to break down. So, and there are people like me.
I want to ask you something, Brooks, about that, really. I know I just interrupted you, but I just want to ask you, do you have within you the knowing that regardless of the gene therapy, that you have access to a source that is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniconsciousness, and that source in all of its infinite potential, with its infinite ability, consciousness, power, potency, could change that for you if you chose it and if it was for your alignment with a higher and better experience for you, your body, your life you're living?
Not actually, no, but I get your question.
Okay, wait. So my question was, are you aware that you have that potential within you?
Oh, yes, but I'm not aware that I have the potential to change where I can withstand hours of sunlight.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's like where you are right now, based on the way you just described it, chances are you couldn't change that overnight. But if you, in your consciousness, were to connect with this divine source in a really unified and aligned way, not in a begging or pleading way, or not in a victim way, like it's not possible for me, but really in a very unified way. And that from that place of unification and oneness with that source, that if you were to say, source, would it be possible for me to be able to have more time in the sun in a healthy way? That's good and right for my body. That helps me so that I can be adaptive in this reality where the sun does shine and it is strong. Would it be possible for me? And if so, how would that be possible for me in a way that feels good and right and healthy for my body and being? And what can you, divine source, with your consciousness, do for me, in me, through me to make that so? Now, just that right there, if you re-listen to that and you ask that of yourself, you will find that it is possible. And that while it's not like a pill that happens overnight, it's not like you go from today not being able to take more than 15 minutes to tomorrow being able to sit out in the sun full baked 8 hours. But you could, if you stuck with it and your free will continued to be, yes, help me, support me in this endeavor, continually in ways that feel good and right for my body and being and that are aligned with my health and my well-being and physical body, that you would change. You could and you would, and it would work for you. And you would find in some period of divine timing, so we don't know what that is in linear time, that you would start to notice, like, wow, I was able to stay out in the sun a little longer today, and I didn't get burned. Oh, it feels comfortable. Somehow it would shift for you, because it's all possible for us. It's just that our human belief systems are so wired into, what's possible from lack and limitation and impossibility. We're all, this is what's so fascinating. This is really a big thing on my journey right now. It's just like, what is possible that moves, because we all know that we're moving beyond these limitations of this old paradigm that nothing's possible. It's just a planet of lack and limitation. We're now moving into this whole new upgraded version of consciousness where everything's possible, but wait, not everything. We still have these universal laws. You still can't invade someone else's free will. You can't go against spiritual law either, because there are Lord guardians of the galaxy, so to speak, that are sort of helping us and guiding us. So there are some parameters we're finding our way. But one of the things that is absolutely possible at this time is for all of us to recover ourselves and restore ourselves to our full health, our happiness, our well-being, our peace, our joy, and liberation of our consciousness, our minds, and our mental and emotional fields, and as well our intelligence, which is what you're all about, which is what we're here doing here. That is real. That is true. And that is happening. But we do have to engage in it. We have to ask. We have to participate in it. We can't just be standing on the sidelines. Right?
Yep. Well, we do have a caller. I knew you would get that out, by the way. I just, I'm glad you were able to put that coherent thought out there. And, maybe I'll try for 16 minutes. I know I can play 18 holes of golf if there's high clouds. If there's high clouds, it's not a blue sky where the sun's, down on my skin. I'm fine. I can do it. Let's bring caller on. We have a caller in.
When you do it, will you please, when you do it like Nemo? Is that the name Nemo? In the chair, you go into meditation and you literally ask this divine source to download it into you and infuse it into your body.
That. It's Neo, by the way, not.
Oh,
not
okay,
Neo.
sorry. I watched so many years ago. Right? You know what I mean? Well, that's the important things. Let go of the relatively insignificant.
He asked Trinity, "Do you know how to fly that?" She goes, "Not yet." Yeah, that was pretty cool. All right, let's bring caller on. South Carolina, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brooks, it's Bruce from South Carolina again.
Hi. You're on with
Bruce.
us and me and Lori.
Hey, yes, Lori, I got a little mind twister for you. It has with me all my life, basically, most of my life. I came home one day from school, and my mother got home from work, and I was talking to her, and I said, I don't know what it is. I was like 8, maybe 9. I don't know. We're missing something in history. I don't know why or how I get this, but we're missing something in history. And she kind of looked at me like, what's this kid doing? I mean, what's he thinking about? Now, let me kind of give you a relativity thing to that. Then she opened up to me and she said, Bruce, when I was 9 years old, I saw a spaceship. This was in the 30s. She said, I looked up in the sky, and there it was, just still as it could be. And it was barrel shape or cigar shape. And then it disappeared right in front of my eyes. And she wasn't the firstborn daughter of the family. That was all daughters. She was the second, but the first one was ran over by a truck and died. So she was the oldest at that time. Now, my generation, I didn't see a spaceship. I hadn't seen a spaceship. But my oldest daughter saw a spaceship. She came to me when she got in the van and said, Daddy, I saw a spaceship in the sky. I said, really, honey? You did? And she said, yeah, Daddy. And I said, well, what kind of shape was it? She said, it was a barrel shape. I said, okay, honey, all right, I believe you. I said, did Lauren see it? Her younger daughter, her sister? No, she didn't see it in time. I tried to get her to look up, but she didn't do it. It was gone, just like that.
Interesting.
And it's like skipping every other generation, like genetically, pattern or traits or looks. Is that a clue to something?
I mean, I was asking about that. Like at first I was hearing when you were saying it's skipping every generation, I was hearing, well, that's just his perspective. But as I was tuning in more deeply, I can understand that frequency, because if it is skipping a generation, if that is happening in a kind of a conscious and deliberate way, we could understand that it may be linked to the family lineage in the star family races. And I'm asking right now, what's the higher truth of that? What is the higher truth of it? What's true, real, and right regarding Bruce and the storyline he just provided? And what I'm hearing is it just happened to be, it's not an accident. It is a frequency match, but it is also meant to be that your lineage is awakening to it. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, let me give you another instant, too, with my family. I went off to school, college, came back with a mustache. Never had a mustache before, long hair. And my mother was kind of upset with me, kind of, but yeah, she, went along with it. It was the 70s, 60s and 70s. And came back for Christmas time. And she said, we found a picture of you in the drawer. And I said, okay, I mean, it wasn't no big deal to me, but it was to her. She said, here's the picture, a little old 3x5 black and white photograph. And it looked just like me, but it wasn't me. That's not me. And she had a mustache. They had a mustache. And she said, well, that's your Uncle Roy. And when you grew that mustache, you looked exactly like him.
Wow.
Interesting.
And that was her uncle.
Mm.
Very cool.
I mean, that really is that is really interesting. But I mean, of course, you can kind of explain it, right? That's family lineage, passing down information in a very intelligent way, right? That's what's going on there.
But recognizing it is another. Recognizing and accepting it is another thing too.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bruce,
Brooks,
the other thing I'll say, Bruce, is like, you're already tuned into this. I really get that you can have more experiences like this. You know, just these star family races are really already here. They just are. They interact based on frequency matches. They interact based on consciousness. And I even remember when I met Brooks, I mean, so my point was, you can go out and ask for more connections. And you really do need to be in the frequency of peace and love and open curiosity, kind of, not like skepticism or, just openly willing to learn and to explore consciousness from a love and peace-based frequency. And if you really are in that embodiment, you will find those experiences are available to you with real beings. They're really here.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. I was going to say something, Brooks, because the week after we met at a Vegas expo, I remember, oh man, this is so wild too. This was wild even for me. This is wild. Because it wasn't like a telepathic thing. For me, it's all been like telepathic and like, family connecting. You have a mission and you have a purpose and this is going on planet Earth. But this one didn't feel like that at all. Like, so I met you and I came home from that Vegas expo and I remember like one night I was up, I think I wrote you about this. I was up at like some absurd hour of the night, like 4:30, 5 in the morning or something, but it was still pitch dark. And I went outside to let my dog out because we were up. And in the backyard over the sky, there were these massive orange, like fireballs that came through the sky. I mean, they were not fireballs, but that's how to best describe them. Came together, disappeared, and then came out of the sky again in another, like, far place away in the sky as one, then separated again and came together, had some form of explosion. I mean, and then there were parts but it was like ships of some kind. It was wild.
You think they were battling one another?
I couldn't discern. Like, I really tried to tune in, but what I felt was significant was the next time
hold that thought, because we're going to take a break. We'll come back in 3 minutes. Formulate your idea, and we'll touch on it in the next segment. Don't go away, YouTubers. We'll be right back after this. X Squared Radio.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky,
and dozens more.
Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117? Or call into your favorite show, toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear on the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Special report. ISIS leader dead. I'm Evan Haining. This morning, President Trump revealed the meaning behind last night's 6-word tweet. Something very big has just happened. A U.S. military operation in northern Syria killed the leader of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Baghdadi's demise demonstrates America's relentless pursuit of terrorist leaders and our commitment to the enduring and total defeat of ISIS and other terrorist organizations.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who has closely supported Trump on most issues until the president pulled U.S. forces from Syria, was buoyed by the news.
This is a game changer with the killing of Baghdadi. This is a moment where we should all be proud of our American military and our intelligence community.
Baghdadi killed himself and 3 of his children by detonating a suicide bomb after finding himself trapped in a dead-end cave. I'm Evan Haining. Freshman Representative Katie Hill, a California Democrat, is resigning her congressional seat amid allegations she had inappropriate sexual relationships with congressional and campaign staffers.
The announcement comes just days after the House Ethics Committee launched an investigation into allegations that Hill had violated House rules by engaging in a sexual relationship with a staffer in her office. Hill denied the allegations, saying she was the victim of an abusive husband in the midst of a divorce. But she also admitted she did have a relationship with a campaign staffer before she was elected to Congress. Linda Kenyon, Washington.
In Detroit, former Democratic Congressman John Conyers has died at the age of 90. Conyers joined the House in 1965 and stepped down in 2017 after his reputation was sullied by sexual harassment allegations. Well, Game 5 of the World Series is underway. In the 3rd inning, the Houston Astros lead the Washington Nationals 2-0. I'm Evan Haining.
You are now tuned into the Truth Frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. X Squared Radio, America Free Radio on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, final hour. My guest tonight, Lori Spagna. Her website, lorispagna.com. It is there on the screen if you're looking at YouTube. And just make sure you visit that website very soon. Wealth of information there, all kinds of books and lectures. Lori is a life coach. She does this live with people in person. And, you know, if you've reached that point in your life when it's like, hey, is this all there is? Or I didn't get what I signed up for. Maybe you can get with Lori, find out where she's going to be live, join her, and I can almost guarantee things will change for you for the better. Things will open up. So shortly, I met Lori at a conference in Vegas. It was not very well attended. The promoter didn't do a very good job promoting. A couple blocks away, there were a lot of people in Vegas, but at the event, there was just, well, there was us. We were presenting to each other, but it was kind of fun. We got to meet people, and very important connections were made there. And she was talking about an experience that she had shortly afterwards. She went out in the backyard early in the morning, and I guess, witnessed a lot of fireballs having some kind of conflict up in the sky, and that's where we hit the commercial. So she's had 3 minutes to formulate her thoughts. Where are we going with this, Lori?
Well, no, there wasn't that much more to the story. It's just that you had given me your book, Remembering the Future. And I was reading it like that week, and I could swear there was something in there, in that book. Either that or an email or something we discussed that I linked that to you, those fireballs. And I mean, I was reading the book and I was fascinated. And I remember reading something that I thought was directly from you that talked about these orange explosions in the sky. And doesn't this sound familiar to you?
Well, in the world that I describe, if you get good at this meditation, this Flower of Life meditation that I describe in the back of the book, the one of the things that we advise you to do once you go into meditation is to have a familiar landing place. It's sort of like having a landing page on your website. It's the first thing that you go to before you start navigating elsewhere. And in time, this became this terrace, this kind of patio up on a cliffside overlooking the ocean. And each time I would go there, I'd be able to see a little bit further and a little bit further, and more of the surroundings became aware to me. And in the book, I described this giant red sun that's rising. I'm like, we see our yellow sun rise. It's kind of small in the sky, fortunately. But this was a red giant. So it was a sun that was dying, and it was expanding, and it literally took up the entire horizon as it rose. It took 8 hours for that sun to come completely up off the horizon. And it was so translucent almost that you could see two stars through the corona of this sun, a red one and a blue one. So that's the vision that I could see from this terrace. And it took me a number of months before I was actually able to look around enough to notice my own hand. And I actually drew my hand and I put it in the book so that you could see what I saw. And
well, that's why I made that connection, because I was reading the book. We had exchanged some emails post conference, and then I saw that, and I just thought that was a really interesting, wow, that was just wild,
Well, that book was written in 2007, and it was after a series of meditations where I tried to put myself into the future, which I think I did successfully, and I did not like what I saw. I mean, it was quite cataclysmic as far as the government and the economy and the weather, and everything was just upside down. And so I came. That was in the year.
What future did you put yourself in?
I put myself in the year 2015, late 2015. So then I came back to 2007 and wrote the book, thinking that if I could teach people the principles of resonation and teach them how to time travel, how to put dreams and things into the future and into the past, that we could, as a society, we could nudge the average reality enough so that by the time we got to 2015, we'd be on a different timeline and we'd miss that cataclysm. Well, the bottom line is millions, tens of millions of people heard that story. And what began to happen 2008, 2009, as more and more of these books got out there and more times I told the story on the radio, we began to create all kinds of splintered different timelines. It was like shattering glass almost. It didn't totally fall apart, but we had all these little changes that occurred in the timeline. Now, we could remember them because we're the real recorder. But when we went to access the internet, or we went to access the physical records, they were different. Songs and movie titles and statements, all kinds of things that we knew for sure because we were there, we experienced it. Now they're different because we were on a different timeline. We'd splintered time. And sure enough, we missed that cataclysm in late 2015. Not by much, but we did.
Well, I want to say, I want to say two things about that. It's a fascinating point of view that you just shared. Like, I get that. The first thing I want to say is this is one of the reasons I love animal communication and telepathy, And it's also why I love interacting with crystals in the crystalline realm, and as well as the Akashic records, although that's slightly different. It's a little more subject to interpretation. But animals hold the history of Earth. So if you communicate with animals telepathically, especially, for example, elephants are record keepers.
Oh, yeah.
They can tell you our true history. You have to know how to ask the right questions. Like, you have to ask it and be able to communicate telepathically, but they won't lie to you. Whales have records of all the waters and marine life, so they can give you history of that. Dolphins have a lot of those records too. All different animals have information and consciousness that's available to us, and they'll never lie. So that's the first thing I want to say, because it helps us better know our true history, because we have been lied to. And the second thing is, what I wanted to say about that was in terms of these fractal timelines. So a lot of people don't really totally understand how timelines work, but it's worth saying it. Timelines are basically collective experiences that enough of the collective is vibrating with and is willing to participate in, either consciously or unconsciously. So for example, we might say, we're unwilling to participate in a timeline now that has war, a world war, for example. And we could know that we're unwilling. But if we are not peaceful, holding the frequencies of peace and forgiveness in our bodies, we could end up being on such a timeline, for example. But so the point I'm making here is the way we can collapse these timelines in a conscious way is to pull all of our consciousness out of that potential reality by choosing, I prefer something better, more benevolent, or something I desire, and becoming vibrationally compatible with it. So if you want a timeline of peace, you have to be peaceful, for example. You literally have to embody that. So how do we collapse that timeline that you were just describing, but that we pulled enough people out of it, was that enough people got conscious enough to pull their consciousness out of that timeline, out of that reality that you just described, and that you saw in the future for 2015, and anchor into a timeline that is based in peace, love, forgiveness, which I call a true organic ascension timeline.
Well, I could see that from a linear point of view. I was looking at it as kind of a normal distribution curve. We have the average reality that everybody's experiencing in the middle of the bell curve. And because the population is so large, that average does not move very much. I mean, you can have really big, powerful souls come in and maybe tweak it a little bit one way or the other. But the best way to get it to move is to activate a whole bunch of people, so a significant portion of the population changes their mind. And when that happens, the average reality begins to change. So that's the way I was looking at it, more stochastically than I was in a linear fashion.
I mean, I feel like that's what we did. I just explained it from a different perspective. Like, I'm totally with you on that. That's what basically was done. Enough people got conscious enough and made a different choice.
Well, and that's it. And that's when I realized, probably in 2012 or 2013, is where I realized that all these different, we call them Mandela effects now, because everybody thought Mandela died in jail, and all of a sudden he's out. And wait a minute, didn't he die in jail? Right. And so we have this, coinage that we have of it, but now we're pretty familiar with it, and there's lots and lots of examples of it, but there weren't in 2007, when no one had ever really thought about that kind of stuff. But we began to choose different futures. That's what I'm saying. Pockets of people here and here and here, they were practicing the things in the book, and it began to take effect. I mean, there were millions, probably 20 million people between 2007 and 2010 that heard that story. And when you get enough people, a significant portion of the population, choosing different futures, it begins to create splinters in time, which, you know what? I don't care that we missed that 2015. I'm actually happy that we missed that 2015. Yes. And I think we can do bigger and better things than that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, I really perceive it and see it as a done deal. But that's because That's my role as a light worker. My role as a light worker, and I don't think I'm alone in this, real light workers, we do this. We hold the light of what we know is already available to us because we are living it in our personal holographic reality. And from this space, not only are we living it, but we are already tuned to that reality that humanity is leveling up into. So we hold that light, and we are so certain of that light. It cannot be bent. It cannot be swayed. From my perspective, all of humanity will have the choice and already has the choice and will continue to be up-leveling into the frequencies of love and peace and unity consciousness.
Yeah, I get that.
For the higher good of all.
I get that. I'm just trying to say that we can correlate that choice.
Yes.
So it's not 20 million different choices, it's 2. And you create these nodes of resonance that create tremendous power. And that takes guidance. It takes a leader. It takes somebody to stand up and say, here's where we're going to point our consciousness. Does everybody resonate with this? Then let's do it. And then it changes.
Aren't you doing, that is what you're doing. Those are your books. That is the role of a light worker. That's what you're doing. That's what we're doing, isn't it?
I hope. I mean, I never really gave a direction for anybody in those books. I just taught people how to do it.
Yeah, but you held the light. You did. I see it. I mean, I think that's what your show is about. I think that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of charismatics, though, and you named a few of them, that taught the tools, but then they tried to manipulate people to think one way. And maybe this is where the religions came from. They were founded in corruption, and they tried to teach people one way. And then every single religion, which I don't know how many there are, but there are probably more than 2,000 of them, every single religion as a basis of their tenet is taught to hate all other religions. I mean, it's the most brilliant path of confusion any dark being could ever dream of.
Well, I think that, I know it's very disturbing because if you're sort of in it, if you're entangled in it, you don't necessarily see that, right?
Sure.
Your perspective is so much, more visionary, so you can see that. But most people who are really heavily involved in organized religion, they're reaping certain benefits from it that really are working for them, and so because they're entangled, they don't see that necessarily. But what I would say is that just somebody before I saw on the chat at one point was asking, like, who was it who sabotaged us? And the truth is, it was us. From consciousness perspective, it was versions of us who chose to have experience in complete unconsciousness, who chose to be entangled in this matrix to find our way out by remembering the path of love, the journey of peace, the journey of unity. So it's not even about like who did it, although it is helpful to understand that it is completely infiltrated through all organized religion, all government, for-profit corporation government of the United States of America. It's fully running through the medical institutions, even though there's well-meaning doctors and nurses doing their very best as individualized beings. It's the systems and the structures that have been so corrupted that well-meaning people don't realize it.
Well,
and the whole educational system.
I tried to address this in my birth trilogy. I clearly state that the core founder of all religions on the earth is the Nephilim. The Nephilim are the ones that organized the original religions. They're the ones that appeared as beings of light to people and deceived them into founding religions. And you could trace all of this back to the Nephilim. And from there on, it's the greed of men. But it's the Nephilim that founded religion, all religions. God never founded any
It's interesting, too, because I've heard that, and I haven't done the research that you have in the way that you have, but just what I get from consciousness, because all of my information doesn't come from research in a traditional way. My information typically is being downloaded into my consciousness or awakened from within my consciousness, or sometimes it's given to me by animals or the Akashic records, the field of consciousness, because you can get any information from the field, and then it's up to you to have discernment to discern what's true, real, and right.
Sure.
But in any case, I was always taught, well, it was a negative alien. You can use the word negative alien groups, different various groups, who basically infiltrated humanity way before we were even alive, physically, us in our physical form. And they had their own private agendas, which was, we could use the word negative, sabotaging, secret, covert agendas. And it's just been part of humanity's existence for as long as we have existed in this reality. And now we're being liberated. So it's not even about necessarily blame, but we've all been entangled in it to some degree or another. And this is why reclaiming sovereignty, really commanding sovereignty, I command my sovereignty. I claim sovereignty and liberation. When we start saying that, and when we also say, I choose conscious consent, rather than what's been happening to us is this kind of like unconscious consent. In other words, you watch TV and you're kind of brainwashed with like butterflies and roses and nice music that puts you in alpha brainwave, and then you're being jammed with a deep beta brainwave that says, may cause death, may cause suicide, call your doctor, call your lawyer, da, da, da. And so you're being schismed into this, frequency extreme of just like, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, but I should be okay, but I'm not okay, but I should be okay. And it just screws you up, and you don't even really know left from right, up from down. But the moment you start saying, I claim my consciousness, I claim conscious consent, I claim the right to liberate myself, to be sovereign, and to claim my consciousness, that alone, and I'm being dramatic, but that's my way, but you just do that for yourself in your own way, that alone is monumentally helpful for you. And it's not something you can do once. It's like a shower. You have to do it over and over and over again until all the universe realizes you mean it. And you're not bending on this. You're not slipping back into, okay, I'll just smoke my cigarette, drink my beer, and play play videos all day, or whatever. You have to really command it. And when you do and really own it, wow, you're not going to be able to be swayed so much anymore. Like your consciousness is going to be restored.
It sounds like to me that you have a lot of experience teaching other people this. And so I want you to take a couple of minutes and talk about what you do. What are people going to find when they get to lauriespagna.com? They're going to do a lot of reading, but where can they see you? Where can they learn this? This doesn't take just 1 or 2 hours. This is like multiple days to get to this with you. How do people get a hold of you?
I mean, it's a lifetime, I think. Well, you want to know what? First, at my website, one of the things they can get right away is a gifted free class on activating your DNA, why it's important, how we do it, what it's about, what the DNA is good for. And then with that comes, it's like a series. They'll get a gifted DNA activation. It's not like a code activation, but it's a generic DNA activation. It will really help, and they'll really like it. They'll love it, I hope. That's at lauriespagna.com/free gifts/DNA. There's lots of gifts there too for their animals, like learning animal communication and telepathy and energy healing with your animals and for you. There's gifts there for that. And then there's gifts on learning about star seeds and light workers. Lots of fun free gifts over there at lauriespagna.com. You just have to, click on and sign up for those free gifts. But generally speaking, what I'm doing is helping people to activate the DNA, to learn how to activate it for themselves, to learn about the codes in the DNA that really are based in the new paradigm and the new reality. I do a lot of channeling work. That stuff I do by webinar, so you can be anywhere in the world. You sign up for the webinar, and it's totally affordable. The next one is on 11/11, November 11th, which is a portal gateway, right? 11/11. It's a portal gateway. What means the energies from other galaxies and other universes is just pouring in for us to up level to. It's as if some love is just coming to just carry you and elevate you into that love. That's what it's like on those portal days. So we work with those days. Excellent. So that's the next one of that. But there's tons of stuff. I do workshops and seminars, and I do sacred crystal journeys to Arkansas. And all of it's about just awakening our divinity within us and really aligning and attuning to these new higher frequencies and to this fifth dimensional paradigm. and beyond.
And where do people find your books?
They're at Amazon.com. And if you search my name, Lori Spagna, you'll find them. There's quite a few books about animal communication and energy and spiritual consciousness and awakening your psychic intuitive gifts and manifestation. All fun tools of the fifth dimensional reality, and also things that will help you to get there too, help you on your journey.
Excellent. I've had such a good time having you on the program. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, Brooks, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I think you're so off the charts fabulous, and I'm so grateful that we've met, and I know you're going to be a guest on my channel as well in the future. So
I look forward to it. I'd be delighted.
I love you so much, and I'm so grateful to you.
Thank you very much. You have an excellent week.
You too.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Earth Explorers, let me go ahead and let's see here. Let's switch this over to this, and we'll carry on. We got about 3 minutes left in this segment. Phone lines are still open, 213-233-3998. It's always a pleasure to have a guest on. I don't have guests on very often. I'm kind of finicky now, I guess, after talking to over 500 of the world authorities on just about everything, from astronomy to medicine to physics to religion, philosophy, all kinds of stuff. All those archives are out there, thousands and thousands of hours of them. You can access them by going to my website, which is x2radio.com or brooksagnew.com. You can learn about my philosophy. You can read poetry that I haven't published anywhere. If you like poetry, you can read it. I think all chemists are poets. It just comes with the ability to communicate in different languages. I guess that's a good important thing. Also, in the last couple of minutes here, I want to let you know I've got another 30-minute segment coming up. We're going to get back into the news of the day and some of the very important Civil War update that needs to be done. I need to let you know that January 11th in Seattle and January 18th in Charlotte, I will be giving my second chance live success coaching. So the bottom line is this: the first 50 years, you did what you have to do. The second 50 years, why don't you do what you dream? If that's where you are, if you're over 50, you've done it, you've had your career, your kids are grown, they're through college, whatever, and you're not where you think you should be or where you want to be, then you need to attend this live coaching session. The link I'll put in the YouTube down at the bottom here at the further information on this. It's the best $47 you can spend. You're going to get 2 copies of the book. You're going to get 5.5 hours all in one day. You're going to get the 90-minute lecture, the 1-hour workshop, the 1-hour small group workshop, and then 15 minutes face-to-face. Ask me anything. You don't get that with a life coach very often. Face-to-face, you can draw on my 40 years experience working with the Fortune 100. There are hardly any science or math that I cannot converse intelligently on, and I mean bring it down to your level. We can make a change, a real nuts and bolts change in your business, in your life, in the way you handle your family, whatever, and we can make a difference. So let's do that. And you can find all that at brooksagnew.com. We'll take a quick break. We will be back right after these messages. Don't go away. Final segment.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Do you have any of these symptoms? Night cramps in the hands and feet. Your arms and legs often go to sleep. On short walks, do your legs get aches and pains? Is your memory worse than it used to be? Ankles that swell late in the day? Has your blood pressure increased lately? If you answered yes to even one of these questions, you may have early warning signs of arterial blockages. Your body is saying that it is time to take Extendivite. These are not the normal signs of aging. They are the warning signs that accompany blocked arteries. Get your Extendivite today. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
It's a great product. And the one thing I like about it the most is that when you open the bottles, you can smell like the scent of the fruits and veggies. It's no genius thing to it. It's really just fruits and veggies, which everyone needs. And you guys kind of put it in a way where you can take it easy and you can get it, and it's natural. And that's what I like about it. You know, I like the product, and I've taken it, and it's definitely made me feel a lot better. You know, I am a healthy person to begin with, but it's definitely good prevention, and it's definitely gives me energy, and I feel like it's a natural thing. I like it. I really do.
For a limited time, use discount code TALK to receive a 50% discount on your first preferred whole health system and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Again, use discount code TALK.
For 5,000 years, the world was ruled with wooden ships by one man. 242 years ago, a small group of free men crafted a new nation built on liberty and freedom. Global elites have been fighting to destroy this new nation called America ever since. Based on actual events, Charm of Favor tells a true story of how they corrupted the election system. They infiltrated federal agencies and murdered witnesses, judges, and even presidents to keep from being caught. Now, the largest and wealthiest crime syndicate the world has ever known has been drawn out of the shadows. They have killed hundreds of Americans and recently attempted to assassinate half our congressmen. Still, they escape arrest through an almost supernatural charm of favor. Read Charm of Favor and be prepared to open your eyes to what may lie just around the corner. Charm of Favor is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
I'm so glad that you are all out there, especially you YouTubers and also the people in the TFR chat room. They're just flowing. Lots of good thoughts out there. Thanks for the phone calls tonight. And in the chat room, they put these little memes in there, and one has Yoda with some headphones on, and he's rocking out. This is good music. Yes, I spent a lot of time searching for this bumper music. It's one that I can get by the YouTube police so that I don't get gigged. But it's, this is our 15th year here at X Squared Radio. Now we call it America Free Radio because It's needed out there in the country. We try to get the best ideas, the best politics to you so you can understand the beauty of what it means to be American. All politics isn't bad. Politics is the science of government. It is the machine of the religion of the way we operate as a community. Without it, we don't communicate on a national level or a state level. It can become corrupt because there are those individuals who see it as an opportunity to make themselves quite wealthy. As you know, ISIS was a multi-billion-dollar marketing plan put together by the global syndicate. It was funded by Obama. It was armed with weapons and intelligence by the Clinton and Kerry State Departments. The attack on Libya and the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 began the movement of weapons from there to Syria to defeat Bashar al-Assad. The Obama's plan to establish a caliphate was dealt a fatal blow by President Trump last night, because we know that al-Baghdadi is now dead. And if there's any doubt whatsoever who the enemy in this war might be, I want you to listen to the president's words this morning. And I quote, "We notified some. Others are being notified as I speak. We were going to notify them last night, but we decided not to do that because Washington leaks like I've never seen before. There is no country in the world that leaks like we do, and Washington is a leaking machine." Trump said that U.S. forces would have been placed in greater danger due to leaks in Washington, tipping off the terrorists. A leak could have caused the death of all of them, Trump said. Adam Schiff is currently pursuing an impeachment inquiry to remove America's president from office. He is utilizing the secrecy of the House Intelligence Committee to shield witnesses from scrutiny and cross-examination and to prevent Republicans from commenting on the testimony, even though none of the material being discussed is actually classified. He is suspected of having leaked material to the media during the investigation into so-called collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign, which was never found. The president's victory last night has silenced the Democrats. They are currently consulting their Wayback Machine to see if they can spin this victory and further accuse the president of abuse of power. You watch. Tonight is the beginning of the news week. In 7 hours, Breitbart Radio will go on the air with Alex Marlowe. They will be speaking of this exact thing that I'm talking about right now. They're listening right now to this program because this is the beginning of the news week. In addition, the president used terms that strike at the heart of Islam. He used words like coward, died like a dog, whimpered and cried like a baby, ran screaming. These words condemn al-Baghdadi to hell. No virgins for him, no glory. He died in the ground and killed 3 of his little children he was using as human shields as well. No Americans were injured except for a brave dog who chased him into a hole in the ground. And as I said, those canine handlers, if you listen very closely to the tape, you can hear them say, "Who's a good boy?" Hashtag give a dog a bone. Make no mistake, a very large amount of hard intelligence was gathered at the scene. The paper trails, the intelligence, the money connections, and high-level future plans were all captured. And the Dems are silent for a reason. They're scrambling to try to get all that intelligence away from the president's military. It will undoubtedly be used to convict numerous government leaders who were supporting the caliphate and Obama's efforts to rebuild it after Trump's evisceration of their forces in March of this year. By the way, that was 2 years ahead of schedule, precisely because President Donald Trump went secretly to Afghanistan, and he met with the generals on the ground. He discovered Mattis was lying to him. Again, I have to say, Trump fired Mattis within days of his return and commenced the destruction of ISIS as quickly as possible. This is why Obama, Pelosi, Schumer, and Kerry have been traveling to these regions to try to tell them to ignore President Trump. They were assuring them that Obama would remove Trump from office shortly and they could resume their plans for the caliphate. You may hear people hint around this. I'm not hinting. I'm openly accusing. The evidence points to this conclusion. Now it is up to them to defend themselves, and I assure you they cannot. The United States once had Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham's ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Obama in custody at a detention facility in Iraq. But President Barack Obama let him go. Al-Baghdadi was among the prisoners released in 2009 from U.S. has now closed Camp Buka near Qasr in Iraq. But now, 5 years later, he is leading the army of ruthless extremists bearing down on Baghdad who want to turn the country into an Islamic state by blazing a bloody trail through towns and cities, executing Iraqi soldiers, beheading police officers, and gunning down innocent civilians. Baghdadi was granted amnesty along with thousands of other detainees because the U.S. was preparing to pull out of Iraq. So why did Pelosi authorize impeachment? President Trump told world leaders to reject globalism and to look out for the interests of their own countries first. He said the future does not belong to globalists. It belongs to patriots. Tuesday marks Trump's third address to the General Assembly as president, as he has done in the past. Trump used his remarks to the international organization to make the case for his America First style of diplomacy, but he was actually talking to all nations. Put your own nation first. Since entering the White House, Trump has pulled the U.S. out of several international agreements, including the Paris Climate Accords and the Iran nuclear deal. He's also called out allies in NATO over military spending. He said, "We are also revitalizing our alliances by making it very clear that all of our partners are expected to pay their fair share of the tremendous defense burden which the United States has borne in the past." Trump's remarks also included sharp warnings for China and Iran. He lamented China's membership in the World Trade Organization, accusing Beijing of gaming the system. As far as America is concerned, he said, those days are over. So he said, hopefully we can reach a deal that would be beneficial for both countries. But as I have made very clear, I will not accept a bad deal for the American people. So why? While Trump is tangled with China on trade, the U.S. is also confronting rising tensions with Iran. Why? Why did Pelosi start the impeachment hearings? Because after Trump made this amazing address to the UN, probably one of the best speeches ever made, he touched on immigration. He touched on the migrants to the southern border. He touched on so many things. Well, within hours of that speech, within hours, not days, not weeks, Pelosi authorized the impeachment inquiry without a vote and behind closed doors. As soon as Congress took a recess, she flew to Jordan. Why do you think she did that? Why do you think they went to Jordan? Why do you think President Trump approved that trip for her to go to Jordan? High-placed federal law enforcement sources dropped a bombshell today, claiming the renewed push to impeach the president is rooted in part in President Trump's move to pull the United States out of the conflict in Syria. What? We're talking about 28 troops. We're talking about less than 2,000 overall. How could that possibly have an effect? Because he's going to stop untold millions in dirty cash from flowing into the deep state's pockets. Don't you think this is a coincidence? I don't think so. Listen to this. It isn't about the Kurds. It's not about the Turks. It's about the cash. And that cash is no chump change. It's millions and millions of dollars flowing into the coffers of global syndicate politicians every month. Don't forget, one of the deepest holes for this money to fall into is a few miles outside of Washington, D.C., in Baltimore, Maryland. The dawn of the criminal operation was Elijah Cummings, who dies suddenly last week, only 4 hours after Jordan Sather said on my hosting that conversation on Revolution Radio. 4 hours later, after Jordan Sather said, leaders of the cabal are going to start dying mysteriously. 4 hours later, Elijah Cummings dies. We didn't even know he was sick. The investigators were getting close, and Trump was publicly asking, where's the money that was taken by Baltimore? But that profitable network could not stop producing its riches for syndicate officers if the ceasefire Trump negotiated continues, and if Trump's plan to remove U.S. personnel from Syria commences. Within minutes of Trump's decision to move a small number of troops out of harm's way in Syria, the Democrats mounted a new and even more rabid push to remove him from the White House. There's panic, one source said. There's a lot of connected people making a lot of money through their contacts in Syria, and that is going to dry up fast. Well, federal sources paint a dark picture here, don't they? Alleging there are about 20 to 25 crooked politicians and their benefactors who are fuming tonight. For years, it is alleged, these deep state players have been raking in millions in illicit profits through the manufacturing and distribution of narcotics and weapons in Syria. The byproducts of such anxiety, crooked U.S. politicians pushing fabricated allegations against Trump to impeach, ISIS prisoners being released by frustrated deep state players as payback, and even an emergency Middle East road trip by Speaker Nancy Pelosi and senior members of Congress to Jordan, which happens to be a major trafficking route for Syrian drug distribution to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Iraq, some of the largest markets in the world for Syria's drugs. You think it's a coincidence? No, it's not. Trump has purposefully sabotaged a golden goose for the deep state. He knows if he can attack and stop the route of dark cash to their efforts to overthrow the American government, they can be stopped. These fake scandals are orchestrated, and they are played out in the complicit fake stream press in an attempt to remove him from the White House at every turn. My assertion is that President Trump is actively targeting their illicit flow of cash to buy houses, to buy planes, to pay for armies of thugs, to beat up patriots, and to keep the media moguls alive and loyal. And by the way, they're bleeding cash from advertising losses and lost market share. Who do you think these politicians, how do you think they all became millionaires in a few years serving in Congress? I mean, get real, people. Oh, you actually think Maya Cummings made $800,000 selling her self-published Healthy Holly books in Baltimore? You think Bernie Sanders suddenly wrote a best-selling book in between campaign stops begging for cash? No. These books are the way they launder massive amounts of cash into their pockets. Houses, cars, estates, like you just saw Obama buy in Martha's Vineyard, worth nearly $15 million. They're all bought with blood money. President Trump is chopping down their money tree, and he's killing their generals. Those are my thoughts. I think you're going to see it play out in the coming days. Yes, a boo-boo bag bummer is dead. He's dead, and he died like a dog, and a dog chased him into that tunnel. I just love it. Who's a good boy? Good boy. Well, there's a lot more to this. There is, as they begin choking off the money, you have to realize that there is a grand scheme to accomplish a grand goal. Yeah, there are a lot of little schemes which involve people keeping their own butts out of prison, putting as much money as they can in their pockets, getting rid of people who can expose them and the way that they're ripping off the system. But the left has a fixation. I call it the left. I really mean the global syndicate. They have a fixation on grand schemes which can deceive millions. And they push it in the schools, and they push it in the colleges, and they push it in the UN. And it's a fixation on climate change, and it's just soaked in what I call scientism. It's kind of a religiosity that goes with it. They baffle you with half-baked, half-reported studies that are done by organizations like the NOAA. I remember them holding up a piece of paper and going, there's a 38% chance that 2018 is the hottest year on record. Well, actually, that means there's a 62% chance it's not. 38% is not a very good confidence interval. Those of us that know statistics know that this is half-baked. And they're also deploying computer models to create the illusion of certainty. Ever more convinced of their role as planetary saviors, radical Greens are increasingly intolerant of dissent or any questioning of their policy agenda. They have people fired because they're reporting that, I hate to tell you this, but the population of polar bears, it's actually up quite a bit. Oh, you know what? You're fired. You're fired because everybody knows the polar bears are almost extinct. No, they're not. Hello, they're actually quite large in population and growing. You see, they embrace this kind of climate Stalinism, okay? They're driven by a determination to remake society. But you have to understand this climate insanity, the fact that the sun is doing whatever it's doing and they're going to take advantage of it for not just political reasons, but economic reasons, you have to realize all these roads lead to socialism. Today's working and middle classes, they're skeptical about policies that undermine their livelihoods and the promise of distant policy goals. Oh, yeah, we're going to change the temperature 1/10 of a degree in the next 50 years, but we need half your income to do it. Even now, after a decade-long barrage of fear-mongering, a majority of Americans, because you have to understand a lot of people listen to radio programs just like this one, they're not buying it. They're not buying it. A recent UN survey of 10 million people found that climate change ranked 16th in concerns. Hello, that's like way down, 2%, 3%. There are a lot of things that are much more concerning to people than climate. Yes, winters are getting colder and summers are getting hotter. That's not because of climate change. It's because of a thinning atmosphere. What's causing the thinning atmosphere? A quiet sun. The sun is not sending enough particles to Earth to build up its atmosphere. So the atmosphere is blowing away in the solar wind. And as it blows away, it gets thinner and thinner. Earth loses its insulative blanket. It loses the filter between the surface and the sun. So shortwave radiation can strike the surface easier, making it hotter in the summer. Once infrared radiation strikes the surface warms up and you get a very hot summer. But what happens as soon as the tilt of the Earth goes around the other side of the sun and the sun passes to the other horizon, that hemisphere begins losing its energy to space. And it loses it very easily because the atmosphere is thin and the insulation's gone. And that means that the winters get colder. So we have colder winters and hotter summers, and it's the same story on both hemispheres, and man has nothing to do with it. Simply put, once the current green agenda is understood in terms of its impact on everything, jobs, energy, society, how we grow, how we think of one another, how we marshal our economy. You know, I heard the other day that Pelosi said we need to organize the military. We need to go fight climate change. You going to go out and shoot bullets at the wind? Are you going to launch rockets at the clouds? There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing man does to affect the climate. Pollution, yes. Yeah, we dump a hell of a lot of crap into the ocean. Well, not we, Asia and Africa, and they need to learn how to dispose of their trash, and the oceans would clean up very quickly. Earth has a tendency to tend towards stasis with that respect. But climate, no. What can we do? We can adapt. Areas dependent on energy and manufacturing, like, well, here, Appalachia, the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, Ontario, Alberta, all these areas that are dependent on energy, the British Midlands, they've pushed back against the prospective green regime. Are they winning? You know, I just don't know. Because they control the banks, they control the media, they control this Agenda 21. Now they're calling it Agenda 23. You know what that is. That means we move you away from the countryside and we push you into mega cities where we can control you, your education, your mindset, your religion, your travel, all of those things. We could do away with cars. We could put everybody in trains and buses and control society, and society can then drop down to a few mega cities, and then a few people can control everything, because we'll do away with the electoral college and then only 3 cities will elect every president. Listen, this is America Free Radio. It's X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew. I'm here every Sunday live. I'm also on Mondays and Wednesdays as a co-host on Quantum Connections, and I'm considering expanding this to Revolution Radio. Stand by for more. And remember, peace, Earth Explorers.